Hello, fellow fantasy sports junkies. Welcome to MFSN's The Hub. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm here as always with Kasey Scheinvold, Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss. We have a great show today. I can't wait to talk about it. I want to talk sports with you, cowboy. On today's show, we have one of my good friends, Rich Davis, is here from Sirius XM. He has some great insight in football. Hope you guys stick around and watch. It's going to be a classic.
Yeah, this time he's gonna actually work with us on picks. He's gonna make his picks. But this episode is proudly sponsored by the Deshaun Jackson Foundation, whose mission it is to advance the common good by caring, cultivating, collaborating, and advocating. One team, one purpose. From pancreatic cancer to anti-bullying, the Deshaun Jackson Foundation cares. All right, guys, it's time for First and 10.
First down.
Okay, the topic today is stats, how to understand the players that you have. This is something I'm very used to with baseball. Football has been a much harder sport to figure out in terms of which stats to trust. So, my question to you is, which stats matter, which stats don't? How do you interpret the analytics?
All stats matter. All stats matter. It's just not one stat. It's all stats. I'm just kidding, guys.
Now that's not a political statement, but
it's also not true.
It's also not
Tell
true.
me why it's not true, Andrew. Go.
Well, I mean, first of all, we've talked about QB rating on this show before, and that's maybe useful for measuring how good a quarterback is in real life, but it's not necessarily going to tell you anything about how many fantasy points that they're likely to put up. I do think, Dan, it's interesting you brought up baseball, because I do think baseball has mainstreamed advanced statistics a little more than football has, but there are a lot of advanced statistics in football to look at. My favorite ones to look at generally are related to usage for players. So, it starts with snap counts. You need to know how often players are on the field. Then you're looking at targets, but not just targets, also target share. So that's what percentage of the passing attempts are going to a particular receiver, those sort of things. There's also a lot of stats about performance, broken tackles, yards after contact, those sort of numbers, which I think are important to look at. But you have to kind of put them within a context. I think that if you see a player that seems to be on the verge of a breakout and those numbers support that, I think that's something to believe in. But it's, those stats mean more over a longer period of time. So if you're looking at a very short time frame, they may not tell you that much.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, with your top players, the kind of indisputable kind of studs of everybody's team, you don't need to worry as much about those advanced statistics. I think if you have a Michael Thomas, he plays every week regardless of the matchup, regardless of the deeper statistics. But when you're deciding for those wide receiver 3 or flex positions or running back 2, and you have 2 or 3, I'm with Andrew. I'm a usage guy. I look at how many touches, how many targets. I look at the team's breakdown of how often they throw the ball versus running the ball when you're looking at those wide receivers. I don't look as much as Andrew does maybe at target share or target percentage, because if a team throws it 40 times a game and the guy gets 10 to 12 targets pretty routinely every week, I don't think that changes that much from time to time. But I think when you're deciding between those more fringe positions, those fringe players to put on the deeper end of your roster, I look at usage a lot more so than yards per carry, tackles broken, yards after catch, because especially when you're in PPR leagues, if they're catching 8 balls a game, that certainly gets you 8 points right there before they even get any yards after the catch.
So where are your favorite places to get this information? And how much time do you spend on it? As I want the viewing audience to get a sense of that.
I mean, I'd probably spend hours every week, certainly looking at this kind of stuff. Generally
hours a week. You play, you watch, and study.
Well, he writes articles on this stuff. I
know,
so
but hours a week.
I'm not saying that
statistics.
Looking at these advanced statistics, yeah. I mean, if you live on Twitter like I do, a lot of what the content you're consuming is related to statistics. So a lot of the analysis. So
top 3 stats that you look at. If you want to start somebody and you compare the 2 players, what are the top 3 stats you look at?
Well, like I said, for me, it all starts with snap count. I like they have to be on the field.
Okay, let's say they're both starting running backs and they're on the field 80% of the time.
Okay, but that's not true for all starting running backs.
Okay,
you know,
let's
some
just
starting
pretend
running backs play a lot more than others.
In Ross the Boss's world, let's say 2 running backs, same amount of snaps. What's the next stat?
Well, for me, I mean, it's about touches next. It's about targets and carries, obviously. The reason, Kasey, that I brought up target share is because sometimes a team can trend in one direction or another in terms of how often they're passing during the course of a season. And they can also trend that way in terms of a specific matchup. You know, I think we just saw in the Monday night game, the Rams clearly went into that game saying, we're going to throw the ball a lot, right? So you want to know what share, not just the gross number of targets, but like what percentage of the targets are going to Cooper Kupp versus Robert Woods versus Josh Reynolds. So you have a sense of who's positioned to most benefit from that, the same way, a snap count is a percentage.
Yeah, and I wasn't disagreeing with you there. I wasn't saying it's not a relevant stat. I'm just saying I rely on the people who spend the hours doing that research like you to have incorporated it into their rankings, but I'm looking at all these different players. One of the things, I don't know if it was mentioned, but I don't remember hearing it, was also the matchup. So when Ross is saying, what are the stats you look at? Well, if they're going against a top 3 run defense and I'm deciding between 2 running backs and their stats are relatively similar, I would probably err on the side of, well, the defense they're going against isn't as strong as the defense the other running back is going against. So that becomes a pretty important fact as well.
Absolutely. And another...
Ross, let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead, Andrew. I'll ask that.
Oh, well, I was just going to say one other thing I haven't mentioned that none of us have mentioned yet that I think is really important is red zone statistics, both in terms of red zone carries and red zone targets. And NFL Savant has good information on that because, sometimes you'll see a player who, we talk about regression a lot in baseball, but it applies in football too. There's players that are scoring more touchdowns than they should based on their usage, and vice versa. There's players that are in position to score a lot of touchdowns and just haven't happened to do it yet. And you want to know who those players are because those are great buy low candidates, those guys that who are getting a lot of opportunities to score. Their coach clearly believes in giving them the ball near the goal line, and they haven't got the touchdowns yet because they're probably coming.
How much of this, I was going to ask this to Ross, but it's really to anybody. How much of understanding the stats do you guys think relates to actually watching the games? Because you could have a guy who's averaging like 2.5 yards a carry and then breaks off a 55-yard touchdown, and suddenly his numbers look like he's running, 5 yards a carry. Maybe the guy fell down or something. So it's hard to, the defensive guy may have fallen down. So it's hard to always know what's happening unless you have read up on what did the game actually look like or you were watching. Do you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they say there's 3 kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? And that's sometimes true because especially I feel like it's more true in football than in baseball, honestly, because especially you have some of these receivers that are just these deep threats and they might catch that one long pass and they end up with this huge game, but they actually just made one play, and maybe you're right. Maybe the defender just fell down. So that's why
they're easier to spot. I think the receivers are a little bit easier to spot because you can see the targets. I think when a running back breaks a big play, it becomes more problematic because their yards per carry can totally spike.
Yeah, and that's why again I come back to the usage stats. To me, are the ones I trust the most because those stats are not going to get skewed by that one big play. Whereas like yards per carry, you're right, it can totally get skewed by that one big play.
Yeah, and I think with reference to what you're saying, Dan, I think of 2 specific players when you talk about the eye test versus the statistic test. I live in Pennsylvania, so the Eagles are on whenever their game is on. And I remember like 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks ago when all of a sudden Carson Wentz is throwing to this Travis Fulgham guy, and he'd never thrown to him before. And it was just, he was catching everything in sight, and he looked like he was really tough to bring down. And so all of a sudden, like I picked him up in a league, and then 2 weeks later, he becomes almost a fringe number 2 receiver for a couple weeks. So the eye test can kind of help you maybe make the final call if you're deciding between who to pick up. Another one was Wayne Gallman for the Giants. They had Devontae Freeman, they had Alfred Morris, but every time Gallman touched the ball, he just looked like he was running harder, and he was harder to bring down than the other players. And so watching the games is still very important because then all of a sudden, what is it? It was like 4 straight games. Gallman scored a touchdown. He had 5 touchdowns in 4 games because you could tell by watching the game that the guy is just running really hard.
I mean, I was listening to you guys. I didn't really talk that much.
Did you fall asleep
until now? So, when I feel with stats, I think they get really, really too deep with fantasy football. I feel that you have to go with your gut sometimes. And when you go with your gut, that's the best thing to do. If you want to start a guy like, let's say, Melvin Gordon last week, I started him because I had a feeling he's going to have a big game. Did he have a big game? He had 2 touchdowns. And if I looked at his stats, I probably would not start him. So for me,
and you were actually advocating for cutting him on the Waiver
I
Wire
know,
show.
but I say that. But I talk a big game. I also said to cut Zeke Elliott too. So
and Lamar Jackson this week.
But Lamar Jackson's my cut this week.
Yeah,
so,
you'll change your mind about that one next week.
I mean, you can study stats all you want. You can sit there for hours and study every stat possible. But you know what it comes down to? It comes down to who you want to start and play and who you have a feeling about. I mean, stats are great. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, you got to fall asleep and say to yourself, I started the best person possible.
I don't disagree
with you, Ross. Say that with me, Dan. I started the best person possible. Say it.
I started the best person possible. I need a mirror. It's like Stuart Smalley.
Daniel Ratner.
Now,
I'm good enough. I'm smart
now,
enough.
Could I be a doctor? Could I be part of your doctor
People
team?
Like
me, you, like me, you, and Kasey can be all doctors together now.
You can join us anytime.
You know, you're close. I think you have earned your master's degree. We're working on it.
You know, stats are great, but Ross the Boss feels you go with your gut.
Well, here's the thing. I don't disagree with you, Ross, that you should go with your gut. And I tell people, I answer a lot of start-sit questions on Reddit and on Twitter. And usually what I tell people, they ask me who they should start. And I tell them who I think they should start. But if it's close enough that reasonable people can disagree, then I tell them they should go with their gut because it is your team. It's not my team. It's, you got to manage your own team.
But do some people have better guts than others? I mean, it has to be asked.
Some are winners, some are losers. If they watch our show,
some have IBS.
They're losers.
Yeah, and there's some players you just like better than others. And look, at the end of the day, you have to enjoy playing fantasy football. So if you have players on your team that you really like, or you're deciding between 2 players and one of them you like more, if they're close.
Plus, if you sometimes you just don't want to get cute because you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose your matchup on what really was kind of an obvious call to not do that. So I do agree. Trust your gut.
You just have to get comfortable with the fact that you don't have perfect information. I think it's like I believe a lot in the data. I think the data tells you some things, but it doesn't tell you everything. And football has a lot of chaos in it. I mean, one other thing about watching the games is you're going to see a lot of things that won't even show up in the box score. Excuse me. There'll be a touchdown called back on a penalty, or all sorts of a guy will just miss a catching a long touchdown and it will bounce out of his hand or something. So it's like there's a lot of things that affect it that go into it that aren't captured in the stats, but the stats do give you that one piece of information, and I think they help differentiate players who are clearly at dramatically different value levels. So it's not all on your gut.
Right. And one of Ross the Boss's rules is you always start a player if he's playing either Sunday night or Monday night.
Or Thursday night.
Like Robert Woods, I started
unless he's
him.
Andy Dalton.
No, Andy Dalton's a different thing. But I started Robert Woods because why? He was playing Monday night. Did it work out? It worked out. It was great. So that's another one of Ross the Boss rules. You start players if they play Sunday night or Monday night, just not for the thrill, but they usually pick it up a little bit, especially marquee players.
Interesting. I had never thought of it that way. Guys, this was a great discussion. The reverse Dalton rule. This is a great discussion. I've always wondered about stats in football because in baseball, I once won a league without watching a single pitch. And I would love to have watched the games, but I had young kids. I just couldn't. And you can rely on those stats better than you can in football. I was putting my kids to bed. Everybody knows it. Okay, guys, up next, we've got Take Your Pick. Rich Davis is joining us. I can't wait to hear what his picks are for this week.
Hey, this is Deshaun Jackson. I have a new show dropping next month, Fade the Booth. I will have celebrity interviews and unedited real talk from Lil Wayne, Marshawn Lynch, Layla Ali, billionaire Michael Rubin, and much more. You'll never know who's going to stop by the booth. These are conversations you can't get anywhere else, right from our living room to yours. Hear the inside scoop on their lives and mine. Totally unfiltered. Subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Salute.
Okay, it's time for Take Your Pick. This is a very exciting one. We have Rich Davis from Covino and Rich on Sirius XM. We've had him on the show before, but not not for his picks. Very excited to have you, Rich.
My picks are legit. You guys are gonna want to pay attention. We're gonna win big money.
I know the last time we had you on, you said Kamara would be your number one pick, and we were all like, "No, it's McCaffrey." And now look at McCaffrey; he's been a disaster from injury. So I remember everything you said. Okay, so here's the way this goes. Now, Kasey, who is a colleague of ours who makes picks, he picked. Who did he pick? Why am I blanking?
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead, and we think
he's out for the season.
His ACL. So
he's out for the season, tore his ACL, and had a horrible game.
Kasey's got to take a week off just for the safety of the general
he's
public.
benched. He's benched. Davis is in.
Yep. So, Rich, you're in. Let's try not to tear any ACLs. Okay, we're going to talk about who we picked. I liked my pick. I picked Michael Pittman. He was ranked like 37th out of wide receivers. He's been breaking out lately. He's playing the Packers. I believe he got about 65 or 70 yards and the touchdown. So that was a pretty solid pick by me. Ross, how about you?
I picked a quarterback for the first time all season. He was like number 17 or 18. Kirk Cousins. He had 300-something yards, 3 touchdown passes. He was a legit like top 5 quarterback last week. Unbelievable. People are thanking me like crazy right now. We're still partying from the whole victory.
We're being inundated.
Great. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And Lauren, how about you?
You guys both beat me out. I went with Jalen Reagor this week. I thought he had a good matchup in Cleveland, but I think the combo of Cleveland weather plus Wentz gave me a pedestrian 4 for 52 line. So
I tried to warn you about Wentz too.
I know.
All right, so Rich, here's what we do now. We try to fit those rankings.
I'm sorry. I'm just so amazed at Ross. Ross, are people sending you edible arrangements? Are people thanking? How are people thanking you for your great picks?
Yep.
I get direct messages. People thank me. It's
He's not
it's
telling
mutual.
the best of his stuff. No, edible arrangements. I think so. So, all right, Rich. Here's how we do this. We try to pick players that are outside the top 25 if they're wide receivers or running backs. We don't want to pick like Dalvin Cook because it's just no fun. But so try to pick somebody who's a little bit on the surprising side. If you're going quarterbacks or tight ends, it's outside of the top 12. So you can either defer and listen to us, so you can get the lay of the land, or you can go first, whatever you'd like to do.
You know what? I'll do what Bill Belichick does on every kickoff ever. I will defer.
Yeah.
You guys, take it away.
All right. Lauren, why don't you start us off?
This week, my pick is Nelson Aguilar. He tends to be a little boomer busty, but he is the wide receiver to own in Vegas. And the Raiders are headed to Atlanta this week. And guys, we all know this is a juicy lineup. They're giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers. I like Derek Carr and company in this one. And I think that Nelson Aguilar is going to have a boom week.
He was one of my picks, but I will obviously lay off that. Ross, you can go next. Then I'll go. Or Rich, you can jump in if you're ready. You tell me.
Oh no! Take it away.
I'll go. So I'm going to take a player playing in Denver this week. It's not going to be that cold there, which is good. They're playing the Saints, and the Saints' run defense isn't the greatest. They're not bad, but they're not great. So, and this guy Melvin Gordon had 2 touchdowns last week, 80 yards, great fantasy week. Of course, Ross the Boss started him because he felt he's going to start producing, which he is now. He's going to have 100 yards this week. 2 more touchdowns, and 30 yards receiving. You heard it from me first, Ross the Boss.
That's pretty strong. Rich, I do want to just say, and I said this before, Ross did have Melvin Gordon as a cut on our waiver wire just a few days ago. But
it was last week.
It was last week.
Okay.
In fairness. Okay. So, this also goes, may really stick in your craw, Ross. Ready? You asked me, would I start DJ Chark against anybody? And I'm saying, yes, I think it's time against the Browns, but there's a caveat. It's only if Gardner Minshew starts. If he doesn't,
it's not. They can't do that. No.
You always say I can't do it. You make up the rules
because it's not part of the game. You got to pick somebody and stick with them. It's no caveat.
You always frame the argument. I can do whatever I want.
No, Andrew
All right,
will not allow this.
Fine, I'll get pushed around by you as usual. And
who do you want? What's your pick?
I'll go with Zach Moss. Zach Moss against the LA Chargers.
Zach Moss it is. Okay, next.
All right. And now when Chark blows up, I'm still going to brag. All right, Rich, it's your turn. Well, I do want to say, Mostert is somehow ranked outside of the top 25. That's not going to last because it's like early.
No.
That'll
go up.
Listen, I'm telling you, my 49ers, they had such high hopes. If you name the top 10 best players on the 49ers. All 10 of them have been injured this year. It's a disaster. I'm going to choose Bobby Boucher, the water boy. No, my pick this week, I'm going to pull for a Thanksgiving miracle. I feel like you guys have all ignored the Thanksgiving games.
No, you can't do Thanksgiving games.
Well, here's
okay.
That's off the table.
Don't just throw it to him that way. The reason is this is going to come out on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Make it sound like you just read it in a newspaper. So we don't want to set you up like that.
All right. Hold on one second. Let me look up one thing then. Sorry.
You want us to call in Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter while you're
this guy's the best of the best.
Yes, you know what?
Andrew?
Yes,
Andrew
I was going to say,
that's good
please,
hospitality.
All right,
yes,
please.
Here he comes.
Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, please come in and make your picks. Who did you have last week?
I had CeeDee Lamb. I was expecting the Cowboys passing game to get back on track with Dalton back under center, and that's exactly what happened. Lamb only had 34 yards receiving, but he also had 12 yards rushing, a 2-point conversion, and a redonkulous touchdown catch in the corner of the end zone. Changing direction in midair like Spider-Man, falling back on his back, making maybe the catch of the year for 6 points.
Wow.
So I'm pretty happy with that pick.
And who's your pick this week?
So this week, I am going to go with Chase Edmonds with the Cardinals. He has actually been a top 14 fantasy running back over the last 7 weeks. And in case you're wondering, Kenyon Drake has only missed 1 game during that stretch. So it's not because Drake was out. Edmonds can pay the bills even when Drake's in the lineup. I think sometimes people fade that backup running back in fantasy, but these guys can both produce, and Edmonds has been doing it. That Patriots defense is not a defense you need to fear anymore, especially against running backs. So I think Chase Edmonds is going to have a big week.
All right, Andrew, thanks for joining us. We will see you next time. All right, Rich, are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes, I think I'm ready.
All right.
Now, you got to go out of your top 10, you're saying, right, for position players.
Absolutely. You should try to get out of your top 20.
You can't pick Derrick Henry or Pat Mahomes.
Well, I'm not doing that, Ross, but would it be fair to say that Tom Brady is out of your top 10 quarterbacks at this stage of the game?
Who's the match? It's against Kansas City? I would think he might be in the top 10, but I will allow it out of genuine hospitality.
I only say this because Tom Brady continues to baffle all of us all season long. Like,
True.
Is this a guy that is going to take Tampa to, the NFC Championship, to the possible Super Bowl? I think the AFC is stronger than the NFC. Or is Tom Brady the guy that looks lost, that looks like a guy that he threw 2 terrible interceptions last week? But as you've seen, it's like an every other week thing for Tom Brady. So I think Tom Brady has some fun with that secondary for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think Tom Brady puts up some old school Tom Brady numbers and tries to prove once and for all that he is the Tom Brady we know back in the day. I know he's not going to beat Mahomes, but he'll try to keep it close. I don't think Tom Brady rolls over and dies in a game versus
he's certainly
Patrick
going to
Mahomes.
be up for the matchup. I mean, that's his kind of matchup.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're going to talk about the games, and we're going to talk about it in the fantasy perspective and also the spread. Ross is our resident expert about that, but Rich, I've heard that you're pretty good yourself. I don't know. That's what I've heard.
I would love to challenge Ross to picks this week. I mean, this guy, Ross and I, when we play softball together, see, he's holding his bat there,
Yeah, that got it.
I'm holding Andre Dawson's
All right,
bat,
guys,
actually.
that's what we're going to do then. When it comes to the spread, we're just going Ross versus Rich.
Let's go. Bring
That's
it.
okay with you, Lauren?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and then we'll talk about the fantasy perspective of each
Sure,
game, too.
go.
So we got Tennessee at Indianapolis. Indianapolis favored by 3.
Ross?
And this game is going to be a tough game. I'm taking the Tennessee Titans. They played a great game last week. Henry's a monster. He'll carry that team. I just feel Tannehill's going to have a great game indoors. I'm taking Tennessee. They'll win the game outright. They don't even need any points. Let's go, Titans.
I disagree. Indianapolis, they beat them 2 weeks ago. In fact, I bet on Tennessee 2 weeks ago. Shame on me. So I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. And that game looked like Aaron Rodgers had it, won at halftime. And Phillip Rivers and that team is better than you think. They're just boring. That's what it is, right? You look at what a boring team is, and the Colts aren't that exciting, so you downplay them. They're going to win this game. I think the Colts are a real player in the AFC. We forget that just because they're not flashy and fun like the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Steelers, Colts are good. Go Colts.
Phillip Rivers. Yeah, right. Okay, good luck on that one.
Okay, you'll see. You'll
That's
see.
one
You'll
L.
see, boss.
Next.
All right,
What's next?
Let's talk from a fantasy perspective.
Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
Who do you play in this game? And we'll lean on you, Lauren, because you.
Well, I was going to say, I couldn't agree with Rich any more. I really like Indy here. They beat Tennessee 2 weeks ago. They're coming off of a big OT win. But they are difficult in a fantasy sense. It's great in real life, but it's like their backfield is split 3, sometimes 2 ways. Their tight ends are split like 3 ways. And the only wide receiver that you're probably interested in, is Michael Pittman. But he's not going to blow you away each week. So I think, for Indy, Pittman is the, only fantasy guy you want this week. The opposite, is true of Tennessee. I think that you want Derrick Henry. Tannehill, he's gone down a little bit since week 5. It's a loss of the left tackle, Taylor Lewin, but he's still producing great fantasy numbers. So I think that you're going to run with Derrick Henry. You're going to throw AJ Brown out there, even Corey Davis. But I still think Indy pulls out the win.
I like Windy. That was good.
The Windy, yeah.
And when you said I can't agree with Rich any more than you do, I thought you said I can't agree with him anymore. You had been agreeing with him for a long time. Got a little. All right.
No longer.
Just stop it. Let's just end it right now.
We're gonna go. We're gonna go with Kansas City at Tampa Bay. We know what Rich thinks about Brady. We've got Kansas City favored by 3 in that game.
Ooh, Ross, do you mind if I start this one?
You go first. You go first. Ladies first. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. Age before beauty. So you should go first. But the Chiefs win this game. I hate to say that. I hate because it's a boring pick, right? The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, according to me. So they can play anyone. I feel like if it's a field goal or less, I'm going to go Kansas City. Tom Brady may be up for this game, like I said earlier. That doesn't mean they'll win. I think they'll just show that Tom Brady still competes at a high level, and they're a playoff team. Patrick Mahomes, that team's going to go 15-1 and repeat in the Super Bowl. So I'm going Kansas City.
Ross, do you disagree?
I agree. No, I can't disagree. Mahomes, you can't bet against Mahomes. He is unbelievable. He didn't cover the spread last week. The Kansas City did not cover. I feel they'll cover this week. They're playing in Tampa. It's going to be nice and warm. Mahomes loves the warm weather. As we know, he played college football in Texas, and he grew up in Texas. He'll be great. It's going to be like a 10-point game. Kansas City will win. Bet the over in the game, too. I think Kansas City will score a lot, but I think Tampa Bay will score at least 20 points.
Lauren,
go ahead. I'm sorry. One last thing. This might be such a gimme. If a lot of times, here's what I do to make my picks. I don't know if, boss, you have the same strategy. I don't look at the point spreads. I guess what they're going to be, and then I make my picks based on that. If you told me, hey, guess the point spread before I looked early in the week, I would have said, KC by 6.5, maybe 7. The fact that it's a field goal, this is like an automatic bet. You should bet your 401k, Ross, on the Chiefs this week.
I'm not doing that. I did tell Dan to mortgage his house a few weeks ago and bet Arizona against Dallas, which he did, and he made a lot of money. Okay. Let's hear the fantasy point of view by Lauren. I'm very interested what she has to say about this game.
Fantasy, I think, the Chiefs, you're starting your usuals, Mahomes, Hills, Kelsey, CEH. Tampa Bay, it's funny because I think that the way you want to attack Kansas City is actually on the ground, because Kansas City gives up the 5th fewest points. They're pretty good at stopping the pass, but you're still going to be putting Evans, Godwin, Brown, Gronk out there. But with regards to Tampa Bay's backfield, it's still
Jones
kind of
game?
Meh, even though I think that they should attack on the ground. Rojo hasn't had a game where he's rushed for over 35 yards in 5 weeks, but it's not like Fournette is really feasting either. So I do see one of them, having a good game. I just don't know which one.
Rojo had that one monster game.
He had 133
he did.
yards
Outside
2
of
weeks
that,
ago.
His hasn't been good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go now with Chicago at Green Bay. Green Bay favored by 7.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's tough with that.
I'm taking Green Bay. I never really bet against Aaron Rodgers, especially against Chicago, who has horrible offense. The running game's a joke. You could put actually Rich Davis in the backfield, and he would do better than any of the running backs they have.
Usually reserves that joke for me.
I mean, their offense is not good. Rodgers will just pick these guys apart. It's in Green Bay. It's going to be 45 degrees. I just checked the weather out, Rich. It's not snowing or anything. It's not the frozen tundra quite yet. So I'll give the 7 points. I see a 30-point win there for Green Bay. You heard it from me. That's my pick.
You make it feel like Soldier Field is South Florida. I mean, it's not like home field or anything means Jack diddly do this year.
No. Rich, let me tell you something. We interviewed Green Bay Packers on our show and asked about the cold weather. There's nothing compares to Green Bay. We talked to James Jones. He was like telling us, like, you know, he's been in cold weather. Nothing like Green.
He never took off a shirt again, ever.
No, it was unbelievable. But
Ross, would you
like go?
Ross, would you be one of those guys that went shirtless, painting your chest in Green Bay?
I'm not a cold weather person. I'm from California. I would never. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt in November. What do you think I'm doing?
So Rich, do you have Green Bay too?
No, I'm going Chicago in this one just because Aaron. No, I'll tell you why. Because Aaron.
Why?
Rodgers,
How could you pick Chicago?
Aaron Rodgers effed me the last 2 weeks. He couldn't cover even a teaser bet versus.
It wasn't his fault. They fumbled. It was that idiot that fumbled the ball.
No, that I'm talking 2 weeks ago versus the Jaguars. He couldn't even cover. This last week, he couldn't cover. They blew a 14-point lead versus Indianapolis.
I had the Jaguars in that game, just so you know.
I doubt their ability to close a game. But
take Chicago. Go ahead.
I'll take Chicago. Hey, if it was 7.5, that half-a-point hook, I would love that. But I'll take it anyway, just to prove you wrong.
So, from a fantasy perspective, Lauren, I'm just going to save you the time because I feel like you play Green Bay's main players and you play basically nobody on Chicago except for what's his name?
Robinson.
Robinson. And even when you play him, it's not the happiest experience all the time. So, unless you disagree with that, we're going to move on to our last game of this segment. Seattle at Philadelphia. It's the Monday night game. Seattle is favored by 6.
And it's in Seattle, correct?
No, it's in Philadelphia.
No, it's in Philly.
It's in Philly. Interesting. Rich,
Well,
do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. Take Seattle. Seattle -6. Philadelphia is god-awful. The NFC East is awful. Any minute you start to believe one of those teams is decent is when you will be tricked. And I will refuse to be tricked here. Seattle, Russell Wilson has played his worst football over the last couple of weeks. And I've always said Seattle, no team relies more on one player than Seattle does on Russell Wilson. And he will right the ship and they will just walk all over Philadelphia. To me, this is another easy one. If you want to win a lot of money, do like a teaser bet with this in Green Bay and have them just both win the game. You know, there's easy ways to make money this weekend, boss. Maybe I'll text you some extra ones.
But should we have Dan mortgage his house again and fly to Vegas and mortgage and bet?
I only do that once a year.
I mean, Rich, I agree with you. I can't bet on Wentz at all this year. Yeah. He's been awful. He's been throwing interceptions. He leads the league in fumbles and interceptions. That's how bad Wentz is. And they keep starting him. Hurts is on the bench. Hurts should be playing. I don't know why they're not playing him. Maybe because they're playing Wentz $100 million, which pisses me off because he's not worth $10. That all being said, Russell Wilson Monday night. I mean, you can't bet against Russell Wilson Monday night. I mean, this guy's an MVP guy. I just feel that there's too many weapons for Seattle. Even with their weak defense, they'll score tons of points.
So let's finish up on this. I'm going to open it up to everybody from a fantasy perspective. Seattle at Philly. Who are you playing?
I think you want to play everyone. But I'm going to hold my breath with Philly. I mean, this should be a great game for Wentz, and all the pass catchers. But I don't know, the way they've been playing, it's like he just holds on to that ball too long. And then Seattle, you're starting everyone. And remember, Chris Carson will be back this week. So make sure to plug him in as well.
How did no one take DK Metcalf earlier in that draft a couple years ago is something that baffles me to this day.
Unbelievable, Rich. I say that all the time.
Do you remember the before the draft, he had those shirtless photos where he looked like a complete Adonis? And people are like, I don't know if he'll translate to the NFL. That's as ridiculous as people taking Trubisky over Mahomes and Watson. Like, I can't believe it. So, Lauren, I'm sure you would say DK Metcalf as well. That guy's a beast.
He's a beast. And Rich, just so you know, people think I'm DK Metcalf when I walk down the street with my shirt off. Because I have the same build, and I say I'm not DK, I'm Ross.
No,
the
don't
boss.
you think? I'm just going to finish up on this point. Don't you think when somebody falls that far, but they're that good, they're guaranteed to be great? It's the Aaron Rodgers rule.
Yeah.
Look at Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams was drafted in the second round.
Yeah. Every time you see that slide, you know what's coming. Listen,
no wide receiver. No wide receiver gets hit over the middle on a slam pattern and the defenders go flying. I've never seen that before.
No, you're right. He's
is.
in a class by himself right now, I think, with his build
So
and his
Rich,
speed.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but thank you for joining us, Rich. We hope that you will come back. We're going to check on how you did in that Chicago Green Bay matchup, the Tennessee at Indianapolis. Well, we're gonna hold Ross's feet to the fire if you beat him. We're not letting him.
Good luck.
Oh, I'm gonna hang again soon, and
I'll be
next time
4-0.
I'll have a cooler backdrop like you guys. I won't be in my mother-in-law's guest bedroom.
I like the
Got some
jailer
good
in
movies
there.
there, though, kind of. All right, thanks for joining us.
Rich, I'll see you soon. Thanks, pal.
Rich.
Up next, it's time for Monster Madness, and we find another pair of Elite Eight entries. But first, it's Ross's rant. Okay, Ross, it's a Thanksgiving Day rant. You have 41 seconds. Go.
Hi, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm talking slower today because it's a holiday and everything that's going on and everybody's stuff from Thanksgiving. I just read that Patrick Mahomes likes to eat his turkey with ketchup. Ketchup. Is he 6 years old? Why is he eating his turkey with ketchup? I know turkey is very dry. It's probably the worst thing on the plate when you have Thanksgiving. I know it's not the greatest thing, but there's barbecue sauce, there's gravy, there's a million other things. But, he puts ketchup on his turkey. It just bothers me. Another thing about Thanksgiving, make sure you don't start drinking till afternoon, not in the morning like I did, which I'm kind of still hungover from. But everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Have a great holiday. I'm Ross the Boss.
Okay, it's time for Monster Madness. We're determining another 2 matchups of the Sweet 16 going to the Elite Eight. We've got Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader and Phoenix against Black Panther. Why don't we start with Luke versus Darth Vader, since we've actually seen that, and I just feel like that's not quite as exciting.
Well, we've seen it, but did we ever see a final winner in that battle? I mean, they fought, obviously, a couple times.
We? We saw a final winner. I mean, Luke chopped
lost
off his hand,
in
burned
one
him.
battle, but at the end, I mean, Vader died because he tossed the Emperor down the shaft, not because Luke killed him. So
no, that's not true. Why did he do that? It was for Luke.
I think Vader would be the winner if they both fought to the death in this sort of matchup during their prime. Vader was just an angrier dude and had a better killer instinct than Luke. Luke still was.
When was the last time you watched Return of the Jedi?
So for me, I think it's Vader all the way.
Okay,
Well,
Kasey
yeah,
has
I mean,
clearly
I-
not watched Return of the Jedi that much. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was going to say, we have seen this, but what if we're talking about peak Darth Vader versus, say, peak Luke? Kind of who would win in that battle? And I think that maybe we should look at it from that context. If that changes, and if that would change anyone's answers, I don't know. I still think that, Darth Vader, he's like the strongest bearer of the Force in history, but isn't it, isn't Luke is the chosen one? So doesn't he, a lot of Force, he has a little bit extra Force. I don't really know how it works. But if we're looking at, say, peak Vader, peak Luke, I think I'm leaning Darth Vader, I think.
I am Luke all the way, and I'll tell you why more as needed. But Ross, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, okay. I was waiting for your big rant on Luke. This is the first time in Monster Madness we ever had 2 people actually fight on the screen. I don't think this has ever happened. Am I correct?
It is not. Yeah,
So it's history here.
Completely correct.
I always take youth over age. I feel Luke Skywalker would knock his old man off. I feel that the old man would not kill his own son. I think it's easier for the son to kill the old man, especially all the evil that he represents and all the anguish, all the lives he killed. I just feel that Luke would just win the fight for the good of mankind and everything that's going on in the world. I just feel the dark side's not going to win this one. I'm taking Luke Skywalker. I'm Ross the Boss. Come at me.
Luke had the chance to kill his father. He refused to do so.
Because
And
he has a
haven't
good
you-
soul. He has a good heart.
He did much
Right,
better.
so why would
Listen,
he do it in this matchup?
Because
you don't have to kill him to win.
Why not?
First of all, you don't have to kill him to win.
Yeah, but
Well,
he's
and
No,
previously,
that's not what we've
Ross,
been saying.
haven't you been saying?
then-
I was gonna say, Ross, haven't you always argued against Luke because you're like, oh, he has to concentrate in order to do anything, and now it's like, yeah, he'll kill his dad.
he'll kill his dad. This is totally different. This is a Star Wars
Darth will
fight.
just choke him.
This is like This is a real Star Wars fight. This is like all the realities hit each other. There's no virtual reality here. This is the George Lucas reality. And then George Lucas reality, Luke Skywalker wins. Dan, what do you have?
Ross, I've never felt closer to you than now. Oh. All right, now listen. Well, maybe it's not true, but this is a very close moment, and I appreciate it. Now listen, Luke dominated Darth Vader, and he was at his peak then. There was nothing about Darth Vader that was slowing down then. And Luke got so mad, he hit him, sliced his shoulder so his arm almost came off, chopped off his hand, left him breathing like an emphysema patient. I mean, he dominated him. He just left him in the corner. Then, on top of it, he actually turned him back from the dark side. This is something we've never seen any other time. That's a big beatdown. And he got Darth Vader to want to look on him with, Luke, for once, let me look on you with my own eyes. That's a beatdown. Then, on top of it, Luke takes him back to Endor and burns him. And then he shows up as a Force ghost, all happy. There's no way to argue that Darth Vader wins this fight. But we have a tiebreaker, so...
Who is it?
Fantasy expert Andrew Seifter.
Oh, not this guy. Oh, no.
Not this guy.
He never roots for me.
We're glad to have you.
I love how I always get such a welcoming introduction from Ross.
Oh, no.
Well, so first of all, I don't think either of them would have killed each other, by the way. They both seemed quite hesitant to actually do that deed in the movies. So that can't be the bar on either side. But I thought Lauren was going with my argument, and then she backed away from it there. But I do think it's a matter of the Force and who's got it the most, right? And I just think that if you look at it, the answer is Luke, because
really,
and if you want to know why, I mean, the Force is sort of like a fine wine. It gets better with age as it passes on from generation to generation. And if you want to know really why Luke would win, the person you need to look at is the Emperor, right? Because the Emperor, he had Darth Vader on his team, but he wanted to upgrade. He wanted to upgrade to Luke. It's like when Andy Reid had Alex Smith and he wanted to Patrick Mahomes. You know, it's you can say you love the quarterback you got, but if you know there's a better quarterback out there, you're gonna, at the end of the day, you're gonna go out and get him. And that's what the Emperor was trying to do. He was trying to go out and get an upgrade on Darth Vader with Luke. So Luke wins.
Andrew, I've never felt closer to you than now.
I'm not thankful for you this week.
Thank you,
Andrew.
Andrew.
All right, thanks, Andrew.
Bye,
we may
Andrew.
bring you back. Okay, the next matchup, Phoenix versus Black Panther. I'm gonna sit back. I have a very strong argument, but who wants to start here?
Ladies first.
Lauren, would you like to start? Because
Sure.
Phoenix
I'll
is
start.
the
I think
only
this is
female
kind of
member
an
left.
intriguing... What's that?
Phoenix is the only female member left, unless the Nothing has a vagina. I'm not sure about that.
Too much
find
info.
Out.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I think this is kind of an interesting matchup. For me, it kind of, the power, the Black Panther's power, a lot of it lies with his vibranium suit and weapons. And for me, it's like, I know that it can be bulletproof and that it absorbs energy and he gets stronger. But I just don't know if it's, do you guys know if it's like fireproof or if it can withstand, high doses of heat? Because if it can, then I'm definitely going to back Black Panther. But I just don't know if it does. So I was just going to throw that out to you guys.
Well, I think it can withstand very high degrees of heat, but you saw Wolverine was the only thing that was able to stop Phoenix. He had to keep regenerating over and over and over, and she asked him to kill her. No one can kill Phoenix without her own permission, essentially. I think she could win the whole thing. She is a super powerful being. She's also the only woman left, unless it's the Nothing, which I also think is a very powerful one.
For Phoenix as well. She was the class 5 mutant, or the most powerful of all the mutants based on the class system. She had just about everything from the intense heat we're talking about to telekinetic to, I think she's telepathic as well. I mean, she could do it all, I think. And she was just a killing machine when she decided to go rageful. The only way she died is because she wanted to die. But if the purpose of this is to win, then she doesn't want to die. I don't think anybody can stop her.
As much as I want to root for the Black Panther, I'm taking Phoenix. I feel that she has the advantage with everything from the latex, how she looks in latex. I mean,
Here's
I
Ross's
don't think any
bikini
superhero looks as
program for
hot
Wonder Woman.
as her in latex than Phoenix. Phoenix is a very beautiful woman, and those looks will help her in the fighting. And Black Panther, I feel, does not have the intensity to beat her. I feel that her superpowers are just stronger than his, and
The latex
she
in
can
the
do
vagina
so
is
much
just too
more than
much.
he can. And for me, I'm taking Phoenix. That's my decision.
Yeah.
Lauren, you need to repeat what you just said, just in case people didn't hear.
I said
What was that?
basically, so the latex in the vagina is just too much. So Phoenix.
Latex
Latex.
plus vagina equals W.
Ross objectifying
If you look
mutants.
that good in latex, you deserve the W. Yes, that.
All right,
that,
listen, and
yes.
I'm saying Phoenix is also she's brilliant, she's powerful. The people who are advancing, the figures who are advancing really far, so far in this one, in this bracket version, are the all powerful ones. They're just dominating things, and Phoenix is one of those. So Luke Skywalker does advance, and Phoenix moves on past Black Panther. I think Luke's gonna have his hands full with Phoenix, and we're gonna see. We've got one last matchup to determine the final Elite Eight.
I loved hearing Rich Davis's picks today. I didn't agree with them on everything, so next week we'll find out who wins and loses. I cannot wait who the winner is. It's going to be me, Ross the Boss. We give you tons of information about fantasy football you can't get anywhere else.
You spoke the words right out of your mouth, Ross the Boss. On the next episode, we have more First and 10, all the picks for the upcoming week, more surprise guests, and the Elite Eight will be complete after 2 more epic battles. Until next week, stay hungry, my friends. This has been MFSN's The Hub.
Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. And share. Let your friends know we're here. If you don't, you're falling behind the competition. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. A great one. Even though white turkey is so dry, unless you dip it in gravy or barbecue sauce. I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking fantasy sports with you, cowboy.
Lying with a blanket over my head, she asked if she could see who was under the blanket with me. I said, you don't want to find it is Hideki Matsui.